The desire for power in excess caused the angels to fall. The desire for knowledge in excess caused man to fall. Francis Bacon. I'm John Rose, and I like the way that was connected, but I know half of it's false, and the other half, I have no idea, and I don't think anyone does, although a lot of people will speculate. But what matters to me is the fall of mankind. Is it the desire for knowledge in excess that caused our problems? No. Knowledge in itself is not a problem. The problem that comes with knowledge is that we can make bad applications. And that's what's happened to our species. And it's about that simple, folks. Long ago, we took something that we mastered, made a bad application. We end up destroying something that makes us feel one with everything. In effect, we lost one of our senses long ago because we stopped eating what's known as biophotons. That is the fall of mankind, folks. That's when we opted out of nature. We used to have a golden age. Every culture on this planet talks about that time. And then they said there was something man did that changed who he was. Created another side of evil no one had ever seen before. What happened? What did it do? And is this just who we are, or there's nothing we can do about it? That's the key point right there, because we've been tricked and fooled into thinking this is just part of our nature and there's nothing we can do about it. But that's not true. We did something long ago and we're still doing it to this day, and we're in such a state of denial that it's saddening to look around and see so many people suffer needlessly, when all they have to do is realize the significance of that very first mistake. When we opted out of nature, when we took something in nature and applied it to something that we need from nature. We altered our needs, folks. It's no more complicated than that. And yet trying to get through to the average person is very difficult, because how do you tell a heroin addict they shouldn't do their drug of choice? Addictions and denial are huge obstacles that we face as a species. When we run to denial, scientists have proved what happens. We literally shut our frontal lobe off, just like a crackhead would do by damaging his frontal lobe, which is what makes that drug so dangerous. The parallels are identical. Our species is like a bunch of crackheads. We're in denial. And how do you get someone's attention when they're in denial? That's the key right there. How can you even get their attention? There's really only one way, isn't there? That's to be an example for these people. I've been doing this for almost 3 decades, folks. I've seen the transformation that people go through, and I know in my heart what would happen, or what's going to happen when more and more people start going through this, and the next thing you know somebody doing this, and you see what it's done for them. And that's going to get their attention. Happened just the other day. I've been talking to this guy for a while out here. Then I met another guy. Both had knee problems. This guy's doing it. His knee problems went away. Now the other guy's listening. Just doesn't make sense. How could changing our diet get rid of pain and suffering? How could correcting one mistake solve so many problems? People try to confuse the issue, try to compare us to angels. Wait a second. If we look at what an angel might be, they're not subject to the law of cause and effect like we are. They don't have an environment that needs to sustain them like we do. See, we're living systems. We're subject to this law of cause and effect. And what we don't understand is that those effects are just part of our feedback system, trying to tell us that we're making mistakes. But since the fall of mankind, something happened to us. We prey upon ourselves. And the sickest of us, the status quo, wants to stay the status quo. And the only way they can do that is to control the people who are supposed to learn what this mistake is. So all these areas in health are controlled by that status quo that wants things to stay the way they are. And as long as our so-called experts are going the wrong direction, most of us are just going to follow. But that's changing. And And it's changing in the way I just told you. We got to keep getting out there and being the example. Be the change which you wish to see. Be a guiding light for those and let them know there's a better way, that they don't have to suffer, that they can simply take a solid food vacation, go for the appropriate length of time. Then you're in a better position to evaluate what you're going to be doing. And that's when you'll realize life has been an illusion. And you're going to want to make better choices from here on out. The best thing that ever happened to me when I finally went the distance, and it took me 3 months to poop out a 20-pound cesspool in me, one of the greatest things that I learned from that is that there is another level of existence in every area, physically and mentally and emotionally and communally, or spiritually, as some may say. You can't appreciate that until you experience it. There are no words to describe a revelation. But when you bump up those biophotons, remember that's the fall of mankind. We stopped eating them. When we start eating biophotons and you bump up those biophotons, you gain back that sixth sense that's so low right now that explains why we live in hell. And of course, the other great thing you're going to do is you're going to poop out what Victor Hugo referred to as a serpent inside of our bowels. And then you're going to have people try to twist this and say, no, the fall of the angels is when they created a food tube. Now we're man, now we got to eat. No, the serpent is what's in the food tube. Some people are going to twist this and say, no, the actual serpent is the food tube itself. You see, we were angels, we didn't need to eat. Now we lowered ourselves, we became man, we created a food tube. The serpent is the food tube, stop eating. No, we're designed with a food tube for a reason. We have to interact with our environment. We have needs that angels don't have. Angels aren't going to come down with cancer any more than a rock or a tennis ball is going to come down with cancer for the same reason. They don't have needs as living systems do. And that's about as complicated as life is, folks. It's cause and effect. But we have tricky people behind the curtain making sure our experts don't know what to do. Focus on the effect. Don't study the cause. You'll never figure things out. It's real easy to trick people if you just get them to take the first step in the wrong direction. So it's just one big con, one big magic act is all it takes to rule the whole entire planet. And yes, I talk about this a lot on my channel, and yes, some of y'all aren't ready for it, but I know a lot of you are, and I know there's a bunch of people out there, more people who understand this part of the story than there are that understand how to eat. And again, that's the purpose of my YouTube channel, is to get us united. Let's get everybody united. We have revolutions going on all around this planet in all types of areas that need change. But most of it's all downstream, meaning we're dealing with the effects. We got to go upstream, find the knowledge we're missing of how to live, start eating those biophotons again and bump out and flush out that cesspool. That's going to change your mentality. Once we collectively change our mentality, the world will change. And maybe at that time we'll have a better understanding of many things that we don't know about now. And that's why it's so exciting to just imagine how this world will change once we reach the tipping point. Think of how many great minds are out there right now that are wasting all that mental energy, only working for a company that makes them a bunch of money that then gets siphoned off and turn us into debt slaves by playing this game. Once those brilliant minds stop wasting energy doing that, we're going to be solving problems on this planet like you won't believe. I get so excited when I think of what's going to happen when we reach the tipping point. I'm convinced that within as little as 10 years, we'll look back in horror and disbelief at where we were and what we were doing and how we couldn't figure out there was just one simple solution to get us out of this hell. And it starts with the next generation. We got down into Plato's cave within one generation. We can get out of Plato's cave within one generation. All we got to do is stop teaching our children the mistakes that were taught to us. Teach your children to eat their biophotons. Morning, guys. I'm only about 10 feet from the bike trail. That's all we got to do, folks. Think about it. If we just taught our children how to live, make sure they don't destroy those biophotons when they consume their food, life will change. We'll bring up a whole new generation that will understand why we suffered for so long, why we were in the dark ages, and now what it's going to take to get us up back to where we have a golden age. And from what I understand, that may take 7 generations. Think about that, folks. Once we reach the tipping point, within 10 years, we'll look back in disbelief at where we were. And then within a couple hundred years, this planet will be the paradise it was long before. We made that one big mistake and took one thing we mastered, applied it to something we need, opted out of nature, became unnatural, became evil. Don't you love that word, evil? L-I-V-E, E-V-I-L. What happens when you don't live the right way? When you don't know how to live, what happens? What's the opposite of living? It's evil. But that's what it's produced. And think, once again, 1 generation is all it takes to turn this planet around. Couple centuries after that, this planet will be an amazing place to be. Right now, it's full of suffering. Right now, most of that suffering is needless. Right now, you can make a difference. Right now, you can join the hero's journey, put some passion in your life, come out here like I do every day, sharing this message, telling people that you don't have free will unless you have the knowledge of how to live. Life is an illusion. You can wake up to that illusion simply by testing an idea as time has come. And when you do that, you will crawl out of a rut you didn't know you were in. When you do that, you'll finally realize, my gosh, how could some of the smartest people supposedly on this planet have been so easily tricked and fooled? How could they have not have known that there was a simple solution for most of the illnesses and ill behaviors that we face as a species? Once you realize that it's obvious that their education's been controlled, now you got to start questioning a lot of things. Because our educational systems have been usurped, according to Eustace Mullins, over 3,000 years ago, to make sure that they can control what we know, and in that way they can control what we do. And if we continue to not know what to do, we'll be out of control. We're not going to be eating our biophotons. Our sixth sense is going to be too low. We won't be organized. We'll be out of control. That's the whole beginning of the governmental cycles, where now we have a need for a government. And folks, that's never going to work. As long as we are sick individually, we can't get a bunch of people and have them solve any problems. If we can't help ourselves, a bunch of us aren't going to get together and make it any better. As Confucius said, only one way to have a good government. You've got to have good men. When you have good men, you have good families. You got good families, you got good communities. Then you got a good government. So it all boils back to the individual. It isn't just the man, it's the individual. You, folks, owe it to everyone else to be the best example that you can be. And do your best to share and not get too discouraged when your batting average are so low. That's part of a sales presentation. Very few people are able to sell 100%. Sometimes that percentage is pretty low. And that just means you got to hear a few no's before you hear a yes. So don't get discouraged every time you hear a no. Get excited going, that's another no. Next thing you know, I'm going to get a yes. And now there's 2 more people in for a treat. The person who accepted it and you that helped them figure it out.